Any advanced technology, any powerful technology creates opportunity and creates distraction. AI is no different. There's going to be a lot of job displacement. There's going to be a lot of chaos. There's going to be a lot of people who get caught in this transition. The only way to make it less rocky is to leverage that same technology to make this transition more smooth.
You're basically using AI to help solve some of the problems that AI is creating with jobs.
They say the biggest disruption is going to come in job loss and job automation. This doesn't mean there's nothing to do. We have to provide opportunities for humans to be reskilled in an AI native world. We have to say, here is how you can learn new skills to continue providing for your family, to be a contributing member of society. We need something to feel that sense of purpose.
In this episode, I talked to Tigran Sloyan, the CEO of CodeSignal. This company has a unique mission built around the idea that many people have the skills to excel in high-paying tech jobs, but they often don't have the resume to land those jobs. And the reverse is also true. Some candidates have resumes that land them jobs where they don't have the needed skills. So CodeSignal has built this platform that helps job candidates validate their skills. But maybe even cooler, they've also created a learning platform where candidates who don't land the jobs they want can boost their skills to improve their chances of landing the next open job. And all the content on the platform is created by the CodeSignal team and is available for free to all job candidates. I talked to Tigran about how his team makes the economics work for that and how he's created a world-class educational team. And of course, the backdrop for all of this is a job market where hundreds of millions of people are going to need new skills and retraining in the years ahead because of the AI revolution that's hitting virtually every sector of the economy. CodeSignal has also been fortunate to have a front row seat to the generative AI revolution, since one of the co-founders of OpenAI was one of the company's first seed investors a decade ago, and CodeSignal's data helped train GPT 2.5 before ChatGPT had even launched. We also talk about Tigran's background at MIT and Google, his contrarian advice for leaders, and his recommendations for AI tools. You don't want to miss that. So here it is, our interview with Tigran Sloyan of CodeSignal. Well, Tigran, I wanted to start by having you tell us a little bit about what you do and your role and CodeSignal. Tell us a little bit about the company and what is its place in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me, Jason. This is exciting, and I look forward to the conversation. Well, I run a company called CodeSignal. We are on a mission to discover and develop the skills that will shape the future. And what that means is that we play in a few different worlds. The first and the most important one is skill assessments, because everything starts with understanding human skills, because you really can't teach people if you don't know what they already know. And you also cannot help companies go beyond resumes and really identify humans based on their skills if you can't measure those skills. You could reshuffle resumes, you could look at it 5 different ways, but at the end of the day, it's poor data in, poor data out, or garbage in and garbage out, as people call it. When you go directly to the source, what can humans do? And what matters currently in the industry when it comes to the skills that we're focused on, that's our expertise, right? Really assessing skills, doing it in a way that is very, very high signal, and helping individuals also build those skills on top of being able to measure them, which is the foundation for doing everything else.
Very good. So how long has CodeSignal been around? How long have you been doing this?
I've been at it for about a decade. It's a long journey, but sometimes important things take a long time to build. And if you look at the overall space of skill assessment, skills development, education as a whole, there's so many companies that have been at it for quite some time because it's a very, very difficult problem, an important one, which is why, people walk away from a lot more lucrative spaces to actually put their energy and life towards fixing this, because humanity, and human skills is the most precious resource we have. But the way we are managing it, the way we are cultivating it is completely backwards right now. But it has so many layers of complexity that I'm sure we'll get into that we've been tackling them one by one by one. And we've reached a very exciting stage of the company's life where all of these pieces are all of a sudden coming together, which is really fun.
There are a few things that have happened, like timing. There's a lot of things that can go right for you when you're starting a company, and there's a lot of things that it can go wrong too. Um, but timing is the one you can't control. There are a lot of controllables you can control, and you're always working on
Mhm.
that, but you can't control timing. And you've had the benefit of some very fortuitous timing, as I see it. You know, the pandemic and a lot more sort of the rise of remote work and hybrid work. It was always there, and it had been increasing, but obviously it exploded because of COVID. And then the AI revolution, where now sort of the opportunity to have help with things, and to put a good foot forward, and when you're doing a hiring assessment or something like that, has just been absolutely rocket fueled, to where you've got tools at your disposal that were just never there before, much more powerful than just a Google search. And so tell me a little bit about that. What has that meant? That's about sort of the second half of your decade journey here, and what has that meant for your company?
You're absolutely right. It's one of those things where you can do everything right and still get the timing wrong. And by timing, really, you're talking about I call it getting lucky, because you cannot control timing, right? You just have to be in the right place at the right time. But at the same time, you have to uh, stay alive long enough, be even attempting to do something, right? Be attempting to climb a certain mountain and then get lucky on one of the turns that has been impossible historically.
Yeah,
Because if the timing is right and you're still sitting at the foot of the mountain, well, guess what? That also doesn't work, right? So
yeah,
you have to be in the game to even have a chance to capitalize on that timing. You can't
yeah.
just like sit and wait for it. So in our case, you're absolutely right. If you go back to 2023, we were doing only technical assessments, and we were only in the hiring side. We always wanted to do tech and non-tech, right? Technical
Okay.
skills and non-technical skills. And we always wanted, that was part of the mission all along, to both discover and develop the skills that will shape the future. But neither one of those two other parts were possible without generative AI. If you think about non-technical assessments, right? The way we do assessments in general is simulation based. It's very hands-on. It's not a multiple choice question. It's not a quiz, because there's a reason you do a driving test when you're getting your license, right? If we gave everybody a license from the, you know, you completed this quiz, you know how to drive, correct? We all know that doesn't work. So when it
Yeah.
comes to very high caliber skill assessments, you have to put people in the driving seat and see what they can actually do. Now, in our case, we could do that for technical skills without Gen AI. Why? Because technical skills are very deterministic. Another way to put it is there's a right and a wrong, right? You
Sure.
can say, here's a problem, right? Build a UI for an application, or build this API, or do this data analysis, and we know what right looks like. So we
Yeah.
can deterministically say, did you get to the ending of it? Here are some test cases that are going to validate if you haven't or haven't done it. And this is how we've built the foundation of the company, in working with tech and finance industries who hire a lot of engineers to help them go beyond resumes and find fantastic humans whose resume might not reflect what they do. But again, the dream has always been, how can we bring this to the wider market? Because the same issue exists literally everywhere, right? People go through painstaking interviews and resume reviews, and in many cases, incredible people who would have done really well at the job just get dropped,
Hmm.
while others get hired who are simply not competent enough. They're just really good at interview processes.
Yes.
Then Gen AI came along, and it enabled a few different things. The most important one being the ability to create simulations of non-technical skills that are very, very real world like. So
Okay.
if you think about sales, right? What do salespeople typically do? They reach out to certain prospects, they have discovery conversations with them, right? Ask them the right questions, dig into the right areas. So skills like, curiosity, active listening, probing for clarity. Then, as they get later in the sales process, they might have negotiations, they might have some tough conversations, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're trying to assess whether a salesperson is competent or not, you have to simulate that entire cycle. Without Gen AI, we simply could not simulate that entire cycle. I mean, we could create the old school chatbots, which would be very like, ugh, what is this? This makes
Yeah.
no sense. This is another Clippy. Or we just had to wait and hope that things would work out. Well, so when I first saw the Gen AI revolution starting, and we were at the roots of it because many of the, uh, actually one of the co-founders of OpenAI is a seed investor in a company. So we've actually even helped train some of the early models of the GPT 2.5 because we have a lot of coding data from our skill assessments, anonymized coding data that we've obviously in their scale it's a couple of drops in their bucket, but that partnership very early on in like 2021, 2022 has allowed us to have a front seat at like, oh my God, these models are getting really, really good. And the
Yeah.
possibilities are endless. So when we saw that, we started building those very early versions of like, hey, we can start to simulate real email exchanges. We can start to simulate real voice conversations where it feels like you're in reality you're talking to an AI agent, but it feels like you're talking to a real prospect or a real customer. And then on top of that, simulation is one piece. You have to be able to grade the outcome because you don't want people just sitting there and manually going through thousands of these simulations and saying yes, no, yes, no. And Gen AI has allowed us to create very high quality rubrics as well as grade them automatically to say these are the folks that have done well, they have the skills and they have the capability to be successful, and these are the
Yeah.
ones that haven't. And that's just a one layer of it, right? To
Okay.
say that Gen AI has really transformed our ability to realize this mission would be an understatement.
Boy, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. All right, you've also released some new research. CodeSignal has, but before we, and I want to get to that, but before we do, I want to talk a little bit about your journey to start CodeSignal because you are the CEO, you're a co-founder. Where did it begin, and when you started the company, like where were you, and then how did you come to the point where you founded and started this whole thing?
The question is, how far back do you want to go? But I'll start from the right
Okay.
before.
Okay.
I'll start from the right before, and we'll take it wherever you want to go. So before CodeSignal, I was at Google, and we were doing a lot of hiring. This is like early 2010s, right? So we're doing a lot of hiring, and Google was growing like crazy. And I was interviewing a lot of people, and I started realizing a few things that were kind of shocking for me. The first one was that I had a lot of friends who, went to like competitions, programming and math competitions with me because that was my background. And I was like, these people are incredible. But I ended up going to a top tier school. I ended up going to MIT, and we can get into the lucky circumstances, speaking of luck, that have brought that about. Many
Sure.
of them haven't, so they didn't have anything on their resume that really stood out that recruiters recognized. But I was like, hey, I'm going to refer you, right? Like you're incredible and really looking for great talent. I'll refer them and they would never hear back. And then I'll go to the recruiters and be like, oh, we looked at the resume. It was like average. So we just moved on. And I was like, you're kidding, right? Like these people are one of the best engineers in the world. And you're telling me that the resume said they went to an average college and you just passed. So
Yeah.
that was like one of the
Mm,
core realizations that like, oh wow, like even when people do get lucky enough and the timing and they actually get to build skills that are transformational for themselves and for the world, you really don't get noticed unless you have the resume. And I started to realize that part of the reason why I was there, even though I believed I was there because I worked hard, I was smart, I was capable, was like, oh shoot, if not for the resume, if it didn't say MIT, I wouldn't be, potentially wouldn't be sitting here because my resume would just get lost in that same shuffle. On the flip side of it, the way I got to MIT, the way I got to where I was many, many lucky circumstances. I grew up in a small country called Armenia where I never haven't even heard of MIT, right? And the way I
sure.
heard of it is I got into math competitions at a pretty young age, even though I didn't like school and I was an average student. Math competitions really sparked something in me because I'm
Okay.
competitive, disagreeable, like many founders are, right? Like you just don't agree with the way things are. So that is what you have to be. But that doesn't work well in school, right? Because in
Sure.
schools,
Oh yeah.
traditional schools, they're designed, you've got to follow rules, you got to do what you're told, you got to, just sit and be quiet.
Yeah.
Those are the attributes that actually get you the A's.
The ones who do what they're told the best do the best, right? Have the best grades.
Exactly. Exactly. So for me, I like that reflection on my past and realizing that if not for the math competitions where I accidentally, some random kid from Bulgaria was like, "Oh, I'm going to MIT next year." And I was like, "What's MIT?" And he was like, which planet are you from? But he grabbed a sticky note, right? He was like, MIT.edu, go apply. They love nerdy international math kids. So like I went, applied, got in, got a full scholarship and moved to Boston. But if you look at that journey, so many people that I grew up with never even heard of it, never were there, never in that moment, never had a chance to even build up their skills. But then even those who did, uh, never managed, if you never managed to get it on your resume, you're still getting blocked behind it and not getting that opportunity. So in short, that realization that like, most people never get a chance, never get lucky. They just get, your teacher says you're never going to be good at this, and then you buy it, especially if you
Yeah.
tell that to a middle school, which often happens. Even those who do, unless it's reflected on their resume, you might still not get a chance to do what you want. And then third, which is what we started with, talent is the most precious resource humanity has, because everything that is around us right now has been created by skilled and talented humans. This
Yeah.
application that we're currently using, the
Yep.
microphone, the electricity, the computers, right? Without human skills and talent, none of this would be here. So that realization that, this is one of the most important things, is the meta level problem that transcends all other problems. And how broken the current system is was what gave me the fire to say, you know what? I know it's going to be hard. I didn't know it was going to be this hard, to be fair. I was
Yes.
like,
As is
I
often
know
the
it's going to be
case.
hard,
As is
right?
often the case. We wouldn't do it if we knew it was hard as it was. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. I always say that you've got to be naive enough to believe you can do it to attempt very hard things. And I wouldn't change anything about it, right? People sometimes say, "Oh, what would you say if you went back to your, 10 years ago self?" I'm like, I wouldn't say how hard it was because I knew he would chicken out and not try it. I'll be like, go for it. It's all gonna
Yeah.
work out, right? But
Yes.
anyways, that combination is what sparked the fire of, you know what, we're going to go figure out how we're going to discover and develop the skills that are going to shape the future, and how we're going to create a new standard for resumes. Because current standard for resumes is LinkedIn profiles, and that is very broken, and it hasn't changed for many, many years. You see, well, LinkedIn is only 30 years old, maybe 25, but resumes came about 100 years or so ago. Some people say Leonardo da Vinci wrote the first resume, not really. But in reality, resumes came about in early 20th century when the Industrial Revolution and people were trying to, figure out how to represent themselves in white collar jobs. In the beginning, they were written in a piece of paper. Then we started writing them in a PDF. Then we put them into LinkedIn profiles. So the content hasn't changed for like 100 years.
Yeah.
The medium in which we put it has changed. And these days, when AI is transforming the job market, the skills that matter, the educational, like everything is changing, relying on a piece of paper and some keywords on it that describe your skills and capabilities and what you can do is just more broken than ever before. And I believe, speaking of timing, the timing is ripe to create a new type of standard that is all about skills and not about where you've been or what you've done.
So you've announced some new research that finds a few things that are interesting, maybe a little disturbing, but also get to some of the larger problems that of this whole hiring moment that we're in with the technologies we have and with the things that really aren't working for many people. And so I'm going to let you describe the research that your team has released?
So the new research that came out is about cheating and fraud, right? That the dark side, I guess, if you put
Yeah.
it, of
Yeah.
generative AI for us and for the hiring industry in general has been that cheating and fraud has gone through the roof. I mean, that's always been part of hiring, right? Like it's nothing new. But historically, let's say you had an assessment, and if you wanted to kind of find a way around it, you would have to go find somebody who knew enough to help you out, or you would have to like go searching on the internet for many hours. Now you have intelligence at your fingertips. Now,
Yeah.
when we talk about this, I want to start off by saying we in no way are saying that, you should not use AI at work. It's the opposite. I'm the number one believer that the fused state of humans working with AI, delegating to AI to get things done is where the future lies.
Okay.
But many organizations are still in that transition phase where, yes, AI is there, but many of them haven't introduced it in their workflows in their work, or they're just aiming to assess your foundational skills, not your ability to collaborate with AI. Because believe it or not, you still need to understand what it is that you're asking AI and be able to do it yourself, right? I often
Yep.
compare it to being an effective manager. We've
Okay.
all at some point interacted with managers who didn't know the work, couldn't do the work themselves, and we know they're not competent, right? If you cannot understand, if you can't do it yourself, just being able to ask somebody else to do it without the ability to understand the nuance or give feedback or be even clear in what you're asking only comes from when you can do it yourself. So in many cases, our partners and our customers choose to prohibit the use of AI in these assessments. Now, when that happens, it's on us to keep a fair bar, right? Because if the rules say you cannot use it, and a certain percent of people do use it, they gain an unfair advantage. And now you have people who are making it through the hiring process who shouldn't be making, and you have people who stayed true and stayed fair and stayed honest who are getting dinged because of that, because other people found a way to game the system. So we take it very seriously to ensure that whatever rules exist, right? If the rule says use it, we'll make sure that you have access to it and all the opportunity to use it. If the rule says you're not allowed to use it in this assessment, then it's on us to ensure that that happens as well. Now, like I said, with the rise of Gen AI, people attempting to do it has gotten almost exponentially, almost 3 times as many people attempt
Wow.
cheating and fraud as they used to before, just because it's gotten so easy. And our goal has been with the transparency. Part of the reason we're releasing the research is to say, don't do it.
Okay.
Because A, you can't game the system. We see it. We do this. You do it. You try to do it once. We do this every day, thousands of times a day. And there are ways. Sometimes people mistakenly believe the advertising of certain tools that like, well, this is an undetectable thing. There's nothing undetectable about it. And you have to understand that even if somehow, which we have best in class detection and prevention mechanism, you were to game the system, you're still not going to be able to do the job at the end of the day because the assessment measures your ability to do the job. And if you somehow manage to get through, you're still going to be out of that job in a couple of months because you're just not able to do it. And this is your sort of early signal of, are you qualified for this job? Are you going to be successful when you get in? And whatever it measures, we've made sure that it measures what's relevant on the job.
The way that this process works, so CodeSignal does what would be maybe we used to call like proctored exams. Like it's making sure that it's verifying that the person taking the exam is the right is the person applying for the job. Am I understand that right? And then it also is making sure that if they have the ability to use the tools, that everybody has access to the same tools. And then if they aren't supposed to have access to stuff, that they're not using things that they're not supposed to be able to access. I'm probably oversimplifying it, but that's what you're doing. And then this assessment found that people are still trying to override those things, and that's what you've discovered, is that there's a lot of people that now just want to sort of cheat to get through the system, whatever these tests are.
So the percentage of people who attempt to do it, not succeed, attempt to do it has gone up almost 3x, is the kind of
Okay.
key finding of it.
Okay.
And again, that's, I think, in many ways, it also uncovers other interesting things in the market because there is, especially for young people, many young people are getting told that, like, well, why do you need to know how to do this if you can ask AI to do it? And I think that is a fundamentally broken premise, right? Like part of the reason why people are still kind of like fighting it a little bit when they're asked to do a skills assessment that focuses on their own ability to do it versus using and leveraging AI to do it. They're like, well, why? And I keep going back to uh, our ability to do it makes us more effective at delegating to AI to do it. And those who can't do it are not, even though, again, for simple things, you might ask, and AI will, as they call it, one shot, get it perfect. And you'll be like, see, I knew nothing about this. I just one shot asked and got it right. In real world, the complexity of work gets high enough, the nuances get complex enough, where those who cannot tell the difference between good and bad and cannot do it themselves if they had to struggle. So, which is why I believe we're going to continue living in a world in which there will be AI assisted assessments that measure your ability to effectively work and delegate with AI. And we have many of those. It's our fastest growing category.
Okay.
But assessments that are prohibiting the use of AI, that are aiming to see your foundational skills, will still exist. And this is nothing new. I mean, if you look at math exams, right? You don't.
Yeah.
It's just because we got calculators, it doesn't mean that you know third graders, fourth graders don't learn how to do basic math just because calculators can do it. And calculators get prohibited at that stage because we're trying to teach you the foundations. And
Yes.
once you get to later stage, like, yeah, of course, you use your calculator to do this faster. But now you know what you're inputting into the calculator. You kind of have a sense of whatever what you've got back is right, or did you mistakenly put a zero there? And
Yes.
like you can't tell that you did because you don't know how to do it this yourself, right? It makes a difference. And I think the kind of confusion around like, oh, the humans need to sort of still learn, still study anymore. I'm like, of course, it's the opposite. We need to study even more because the
Mm.
bar for being effective has gone up, right? Like
Okay.
you actually now, many historically, as a new grad, for example, in software engineering, you
Yeah.
came into a organization and you knew how to do the basics, right? Like algorithms and data structures. And they would be like, hey, go fix this couple of bugs. And then they will give you like 5, 6 years on the job to be trained on true software engineering, the software engineering principles, on how to build complex systems. Now, what used to be a job is now becoming a task. And this is also
Hmm.
something that has happened throughout history over and over again, where the jobs of yesterday have become tasks of today.
Okay.
And the jobs of today have become more abstract and more complex. To give you an example, document editing and formatting used to be a job, right? You
Yeah.
basically was like, oh, here's a bunch of text written horribly. I need you to like spend a lot of time figure out how to like properly format this, edit this, the headers, how they should go, how they should be positioned. Now you just like plug it into Google Docs, and document editing is no longer somebody's job. It's just part of a task that we
True.
do to make things look good. So same thing is happening, starting with software engineering. Why? Because who integrates AI into our work? Engineers do. Well, engineers, like many humans, are being a little bit selfish, and we started by integrating it first into the engineering workflow. So essentially, when you look at, there is intelligence layer and then there's an integration layer, right?
Okay.
Things can be smart and then they can be integrated into our day-to-day work so that they can actually help us contextually do things better. With tools like Cursor and Cloud Code, the sort of integration of that intelligence into work has first come to engineering, which is why there you're seeing first and foremost a very fast transition from things that used to be jobs, such as fix a couple of small bugs and just like do some maintenance work, are becoming tasks. And entry level engineers are expected to do even more because that simple task can already be done with AI.
That's a
Now,
great insight. That is a great insight. Yeah.
right? Now, the problem, though, the big problem, the dark side of this is that companies, at least so far, are unwilling to be the educators to get you to that next level. So educators have to step up. So the
Okay.
expectation from what people should be coming out of their secondary education is dramatically higher today, which is what's driving a drop in employment for early talent. Because companies are just saying, like, hey, I don't want to. Some companies, actually, some of our partners are taking it upon themselves to say, hey, you know what? We are going to be that next tier of education. We're going to help you close that gap
Okay.
because they realize that they can't just stop hiring younger people. That's going to backfire at some point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But many others are like, you know what? Our more senior engineers are already there. They're just going to kind of delegate to AI. And believe me, this is coming to every other job as well. It's just missing that integration layer where
Okay.
most other professions are still copy pasting things from ChatGPT and Claude back into their system. That is a disconnected intelligence in the work system. Eventually, it will be in every part of your workflow.
That is such a powerful insight, and clearly you and your team do a lot of thinking around this, and are obviously working with organizations thinking about this sort of at the leading edge of the ways work is changing. At the Deep View, we just did a story with IBM this week where they were saying that they are tripling their hiring of entry level roles. But what they're doing is they're doing similar to what you said. They're taking on that we're going to train them in terms of what work looks like now, and what are the things that are uniquely human, and lets them focus on those things that humans can do and have to do, and not the
Right.
things that could be done by algorithms or AI, or agents. So that's really interesting. So how does this tie in? Any other, actually, before we wrap the research itself, any other insights from the research or any other data points that would be helpful for our audience in getting their heads around this? I know one that I'll share, and maybe you have others that sort of feed off of it. That 80% of Gen Z reportedly are using in their AI in their daily lives, and so. Then the entry level assessment cheating jumped from 15% to 40%. And I'm assuming you all making the connection between the two, that a lot of those were Gen Z who are, leaving college and applying for their first jobs.
And there's also this kind of mistaken belief that everybody is doing it, so I have to do it as well to get ahead.
Ah, okay.
And we work very hard to combat that wrong impression, right?
Okay.
Like, yes, there's tools out there that are really poor our detection and prevention whenever the rules prohibit, which means yes, everybody's going to be doing it, and that means you have to do it as well to get ahead. But what we see is that we go out of our way to explain to our assessment takers that we will ensure integrity. We will ensure that others, because again, you got to realize that like this is a classic prisoner's dilemma,
Okay.
right? Like if others are going to do it, I got to do it too, because that's the only way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way you explain, because most people are well intentioned, right? And you have to be very clear up front that CodeSignal has best in class systems to ensure that others will keep the integrity and they will not cheat through this assessment. So you should do the same. And that is key in that transition, right? That like, hey, don't believe what you're told in various different marketing websites of cheating tools. We can detect it, and we will ensure that others keep the integrity. So you should do the same.
Very good. So I am going to just flag a couple of the other findings in the study that I really like to see if you have any, thoughts on these. That 35% included some frequent off-screen referencing. So during their sessions where they're doing these assessments. 23% showed unusually linear typing patterns where complex solutions were produced with minimal pauses or debugging. And then 15% demonstrated elevated similarity to known answers or leaked content. So you found your tools are strong enough to figure these things out. And that's one of the things that people who are younger people out there who are applying and are doing these assessments, for those that are listening to this, we want them to know like the tools are very good. They will understand, if you are breaking the rules. And so it should be on them to prepare properly and to make sure that they're doing and applying for jobs that they are a good fit for. Because if they think that they're going to use AI to sort of cheat their way through it's not going to be good. And even if they did get the job, that the assessment is going to tell them that they're not going to be in a good place to succeed in the role. Is that summed up
Exactly.
pretty well?
Exactly, right? Exactly. I think at the end of the day, I always tell people focus on your skills because the world is moving towards a place where skilled humans never go unnoticed. And if you just focus on building your skills, and obviously we also help educate people on what the right skills are, because that's kind of up for debate right now, right? What are the skills that matter?
Sure.
But
Sure.
focusing on your skills is the best thing that you can do for your career.
So you had your founding thesis of the company was you wanted to take people who were skilled and weren't getting a fair shake because they didn't have the right pieces of paper or the right lines on their resume. Are you accomplishing that mission? What does that look like 10 years later?
Yeah, uh, I'm happy to report that. Yes, we are. So if you look at the industry, I'll give you a couple more stats, right? So in software engineering, more than 80% of all computer science graduates from US-based universities every year go through our certified assessments. And our certified assessments are assessments that we design and maintain, and
Okay.
not just kind of every company doing their own thing, right? So it's more standardized in nature, and we see the cross section. And additionally, most of the Fortune 100s are using skills-based hiring approaches,
Okay.
and it is very quickly, like I said, this has not been possible before 2023. It's only been barely 3 years, but it's very quickly expanding to other job categories and other job domains. Our skill assessments and non-technical skill assessments have been the fastest growing category in our business, where other organizations and other groups within our customers, right, like the go-to-market teams, the support teams, the sales teams, the finance teams are saying, I'd love to understand the skills of the people that I hire up front versus spending hours in pointless interviews, and give people a chance that if you have the skills, you get through. Because traditionally, what happens is only 5 to 10% ever hear back or ever enter the funnel.
Sure. Yeah.
90% just get locked behind the resumes. And that's a massive, massive opportunity for companies to find great people, and then for individuals to really shine and put their skills to use to make the world a better place.
Have you enabled companies to get beyond that sort of 5 to 10% to find folks that would normally have been missed and that could be potential candidates?
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you look at again our customers, we have some of the biggest employers in the world, right? So from Netflix and Meta and Amazon to Capital One and MasterCard. So like some of the largest employers. And
Yeah.
when they work with us, the equation is actually flipped. 90% get the opportunity, 10% don't, most
Okay.
cases because they don't pass basic qualifications such as
Sure.
authorized to work in the country so there's still some resume filtration that happens, mostly
Okay.
on like, okay, do you even have permission to work here? Are you located in a place if it's location specific? But beyond those basic qualifications, almost everybody gets a chance to say, I have the skills to do this job. And we become the arbiter to decide, do you or do you not? And if you do not, this is very key to our mission. It doesn't stop there. We don't just say, tough luck, you don't have the skills. We say, here are thousands of courses, hands-on learning courses in CodeSignal Learn platform that you can utilize to actually build those skills. Because you don't have them today, it doesn't mean you can't have them tomorrow. And you need to be given the chance to build those skills versus just being told, sorry, you don't have it.
So your customers are the big employers, but they are also people looking for roles as well. And is there a price to pay to the courses? Is there a subscription, or you pay per course, or how does that work?
First of all, it's there's a free tier, which is very generous in terms of allowing you to
Okay.
learn continuously, and no courses are gated behind premium content. All of our courses are freely available. We do have an AI tutor and mentor, which is another part of how GenAI revolution enabled us to keep climbing this mountain, is that great learning happens in form of tutoring, right? So if
Sure.
you're not
Yeah.
actually personalizing the learning experience, people get stuck in things for very different reasons. Some people get stuck because they forgot what you taught them 3 courses ago, and others get
Yep.
stuck because they forgot some fact from 8th grade, right? And the only way you can figure that out is to continuously evaluate their skills, but also have one-on-one tutoring. This is one of the best known educational psychology research outcomes. It's called Bloom's Two Sigma problem, which has
Okay.
been conducted more than 40 years ago by Benjamin Bloom, which says that when you take a group of people who are learning something and you split them randomly into 2 parts, and you have one part go through traditional kind of classroom style one-to-many instruction, and then you give the other part a one-on-one tutor for everybody, you see 2 standard deviations above educational outcomes. To put it more simply, people who would normally get a C get an A. People who would
Okay.
normally fail get a B. And this
Okay.
finding, right, it's not called the two sigma revelation or the two sigma solution. It's called the two sigma problem. Why?
Okay.
Because they were like, okay, great, we found something that works, can't be scaled. How are you going to get a
Mm,
tutor for everybody in the world, right? It's just okay, great, once something works, can't be done. But that was before GenAI.
okay.
GenAI actually transformed that, and which is why I've been talking about Bloom's two sigma problem, because it's no longer a problem, it's the solution. So with our learning platform, we've built a very capable AI agent, Cosmo, who is continuously helping you as you go through the platform as you learn. Now, we started this piece of the conversation from the pricing piece.
Yeah.
Cosmo has an energy level, and on the free tier, he gets tired and he says, "Hey, come back tomorrow to keep learning." That is that is
Okay.
literally the only gating factor, because obviously we've got to pay our AI bills, and we had to put some gating factor. Now, here are a couple of things that happen. First, we constantly give generous scholarships to people who cannot afford this to make sure that they have access to free world-class education.
Okay.
Second, we work with our employer partners who both buy the solution for their employees for Gen AI literacy. For example, one of our partners, Dropbox, runs an awesome Gen AI Academy powered by CodeSignal for all of their employees to actually build up their Gen AI literacy skills and the Gen AI awareness skills, Gen AI integration, or even Gen AI research skills with Cosmo, with CodeSignal Learn. And in that case, of course, the company pays, the employees do not pay. And
Gotcha.
then lastly, many of our partners are actually choosing to buy licenses and give it to their candidates. So they're saying,
Mm,
hey, thank you for applying here. Sorry, not now. And we don't have an internal university, kind of like you mentioned, some employers do to kind of take you through. But we've partnered with CodeSignal and we're paying essentially for your education to keep on learning in the hopes that no strings attached, but in the hopes that you will one day, when you are ready, you will come and try applying and working here again.
that's really encouraging to hear, and I hadn't heard it, and then yet, and then also you're basically using AI to help solve some of the problems with that AI is creating with
Mhm.
jobs. That's
That is the only way. That is
yeah.
the only way, because it is, I mean, and this is true always, right? Any advanced technology, any powerful technology creates opportunity and creates distraction.
Yep.
And
Yep.
AI is no different. There's going to be a lot of job displacement. There's going to be a lot of chaos, There's going to be a lot of people who get caught in this transition. And the only way, really, to make it less rocky is to leverage that same technology to make this transition more smooth. And I personally believe that education is the way, because everybody go talk to any AI expert, they say the biggest disruption is going to come in job loss and job automation. Now,
Yeah.
this doesn't mean there's nothing to do. This means that, you know, today's jobs became tomorrow's tasks, and there's new types of jobs to be done, but they require new types of skills. And we have to provide opportunities for humans to be reskilled in an AI native world and not in the world that was created before, because the world that's been created before is built to educate 20-year-olds only, really, right? Like it's like, hey,
Right.
there's a funnel. Go to
Yep.
school, go to college, get a job, and then you're set. That world is gone. The world we live in today is that in a couple of years, uh, all truck driving is going to get displaced with autonomous vehicles. All Uber driving, all delivery is going to get displaced. I mean, you come to San Francisco every day, there's more Waymos than they were yesterday. You can just see it happening.
Yeah.
Now, we can't just sit back and say, well, tough luck. What you used to do to, feed your family is no longer possible. We have to say, here is how you can learn new skills to continue providing for your family, to be a contributing member of society. And just saying, you know what, well, let's just do universal welfare, universal basic income, that's not going to solve it because humans still need purpose.
Yeah.
You need to do something to feel useful and accomplishing something and not just get a check every day and say, go do whatever, right? Like we need
Yeah.
something to feel that sense of purpose.
Quality education materials is quite a challenge too. How do you handle that? Because it's great that you're doing it. You have your own academy. Do you have partners with that? Do you have your own educational department? How do you make sure? And of course, as you know, I'm sure could tell much better than me. Educational materials when it comes to tech are almost outdated, but the moment you finish, creating them. So how do you manage that challenge?
Absolutely. It's a fantastic question. And when we started on the learning journey, we wanted to go partner to kind of solve that exact challenge. But the challenge with partnering is you simply do not have hands-on learning content available almost anywhere.
Okay.
Like we looked, right? Most of existing learning courses and content is videos and passive learning experience. And we knew that's not an effective way to teach. Effective way is hands-on and one-on-one personalized. You have to get both of those things right in
Okay.
order for you to even have a chance of engaging effective learning experiences. So there was no other way. We had to build it ourselves. So we've built up a large course production team that is continuously building and staying on top of all the new changes. But again, we couldn't have done it without help from GenAI. We've built many tools that make this process simpler for us, such as all of the video lessons that we produce aren't filmed. They are generated from human curated lessons. So we human
Okay.
curate the lessons, and then instead of spending days recording videos, we actually within minutes go from that to a video lesson that would have taken us, 3 times more, if
Sure.
not longer, to actually
Yeah.
accomplish.
Yeah.
And then there's other elements to it, such as review and catching mistakes in this, right? Like historically, you had course designers, then you had reviewers, then had this QA iteration cycle. Now we go from, hey, here's a lesson that we've produced to, oh, there's issues in there, and here's quick fixes to it, again within seconds.
Okay.
So all of these advancements in generative AI have allowed us to go from, hey, we just entered the education space a few years ago to being one of the leading providers with one of the largest content libraries available, and content library that's not just passive learning. Content library that is all about practice, practice, practice. If you're an engineer, you've got an IDE where you write code and then Cosmo tells you if you're doing it right or wrong. If you are actually a student who's trying to understand, how do we have this thing called Career Readiness Academy, right? Because many students
Okay.
graduate, they've never worked in the industry before.
Sure.
What's professionalism look like in a meeting? Well, we have simulated environments where there's an AI agent, like a pretends to be your boss who's giving you feedback. Like, how do you react to that? How do you, these are skills that people normally learn on the job, right? And the
Yes.
more you can practice it in a simulated environment in advance, in a safe environment where you can mess up 100 times, there's no implications. There's nobody's going to be like, oh, this guy, right?
Yes.
Mess up.
Yes.
It's okay. You can just go again, and Cosmo will be like, look, this is what you're doing wrong. Let's just try it slightly different this time around.
You've created a whole content team that's trying to create sort of the most sort of cutting edge, best content in the world for learning how to develop your skills.
The the only way.
That's
The only
that
way.
is
I wish there was an easier way.
I was gonna say that is a formidable thing to do. But very cool. All right, Tigran, I want to ask you two questions I ask at the end of these that I like to ask all of our guests. One is you're a CEO, and in the world that we're in, the most valuable commodity we have, and maybe the real currency is time. And so, how do you spend your time, and what's perhaps your best tip for other leaders, CEOs and leaders that are trying to, maximize their time, maximize their, leverage?
It's a great question, and I'm a contrarian in this because every business school course you look at, every book you read, they encourage you to sort of find leverage in delegation and abstraction, and almost they encourage you to kind of separate yourself from the work itself.
Yeah.
I believe that the opposite is true. I
Okay.
believe great leaders lead from the front and they understand the details. You don't have to understand the details of like everything, right? But you want to narrow down what are the biggest challenges facing us right now? What is the thing that is truly getting in the way? And once you've kind of pinpointed them, you don't just say, hey, you go figure it out. Because guess what? The hardest problems, if your team could have figured it out, they would have already figured it out. So what I try to do is find the bottlenecks in achieving what we need to achieve and then go very deep into it. Not alone, with the team, to say like, okay, let's think from first principles. Why is this getting in the way and what can we do about it? Sometimes it's about how on earth are we going to build thousands of courses in a matter of months to be able to help our customers. And sometimes it's, oh, look, cheating is on the rise. What are we going to do about that to
Yeah.
continue be serving our customers? Whatever is the hardest problem at that moment, whatever is the bottleneck, I get very deep, I get very hands-on, and I work with the team in the frontiers to figure out how to solve it.
Very good. As a journalist, I love a good contrarian. So I appreciate that. And then the other one is the last question is, what are the AI tool? What's an AI tool that you're using regularly these days that's really helping you and that you think others, could benefit from?
Yeah, so that second part changes things because my favorite one will be Cursor, which is an AI agent for writing code and understanding code bases, which always helps me,
Sure.
especially when I'm in the frontier trying to understand what's going on. But a tool that actually I think a lot of people can use that I've found very valuable is Claude. Obviously, everybody knows Claude, but Claude's Chrome extension, which I feel like many people don't know about.
Yeah.
Claude has this Chrome extension that I can actually take actions for you in the browser, such as, hey, fill out this random forms that, given this context, I don't want to click into 50 places to do this myself, or go make a quick reservation for me at this place. Essentially, anything you can do yourself in the browser with enough context with proper prompting, you can just hand it off to Claude browser extension and walk away.
Tigran, thank you for being here on the Deep View Conversations. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Clearly, it has a ton of meaning to you and your team. And you've got a lot of important work in front of you in the years ahead, helping people acquire the skills they need for all the changes that are happening in the economy.